This is from Michael, Vicky, Harry, Funto. Funto is one of my drum students, very talented drummer. Jed and Mark, I think that is.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, so here's your questions. Where do other animals, wild animals, come into this idea?
Okay. You could answer that question by juxtaposition to the current system, in that wild animals and the exploitation of wildlife, both animal and plant, in fact, serves the profit mechanism and not much else. There's not much of a reinforcement mechanism to look after our natural habitat and the natural habitat that we share with all of plant and human life. In a resource-based economy, the mentality would be completely different. We would understand that there's a symbiotic relationship between humanity and its environment, and if the environment perishes, humanity will follow shortly afterwards. So.
And that's very true for things like, if you put a baby in a dark room for 5 years, it'll never see, because the circuits of light in the eyes need that to turn on. That you turn on those genetics so that it can see. You don't see without light. Everything's interconnected in that way. You don't breathe without oxygen producing plants. Basically, this is the symbiotic relationship, and the animals is exactly the same thing. If the bees die out, that's not great news. Overfishing is horrendous on this planet. 70 million sharks are killed every year in our seas for shark fin soup. And the reason the Chinese and the Japanese do that is because they think that because the sharks never get ill, their blood has some magical quality. So they eat it, and it's got absolutely no scientific reference to that decision-making process at all. And whilst they go around believing this stuff because they're marketed to do it, they carry on buying shark fin soup. And we're currently getting rid of the top predator in our oceans that's been surviving in there for 350 million years with absolutely no idea of what that's going to do to our fish populations. So there's no joined-up thinking in this system. There's no comprehensive thinking in this system. If you remotely think that's the case, then please revise your findings, because species are now going extinct at a rate of 1,000 times their normal rate because of human activity on this planet. So if you're concerned about wildlife, believe you me, this system is not for you, or your system's not for you. The one we're talking about is. So and much of nature would be just allowed to go back to the way it is. Whereas at the moment we have to dominate every square inch of this planet in our mad quest for owning every last blade of grass, because apparently we can take it with us.
Okay, so next question. We've covered this in a previous video. How would religion fit into this movement? When you say this movement, in the establishment of a resource-based economy, religion's real-world tangible effects would be critically analysed. You can watch this in another video, but it's a common frequently asked question, and other people have answered it.
But basically, to try and sum it up as quickly as possible, you can believe whatever you like until it has a negative retroaction on human beings. So by all means, have a church. This is the point of this. Is it's like, what are you going to permit and what you're not going to permit. It's not a case of that. It's a case of what is going to be beneficial for human beings as a decision-making method on this planet. Is it to say, well, if you don't all believe in Jesus Christ, the Lord our Saviour, then I'm sorry. That's it. Well, I'm sorry, you've been saying that for like 2,000 years, and it's created quite a lot of problems. So religion is never going to bring about a brotherhood of man. It's not going to happen. There has to be a certain point at which we call time out and say, I'm sorry. Killing people because they drew a picture of your profit is not sustainable social collaborative values on this planet. And if you want to build certain things that alleviate the problems you keep praying for, you're going to have to do it in reality. In other words, you're going to have to get up off your knees, stop praying for this change you seek, and actually put it into action. I think Jesus said something along the lines of, by their work you shall know them. In other words, get up off your arse and make the world a better place. And that's essentially what it should appeal to the religious, because it's basically saying, practice what you preach. you know, and that's essentially where religion would fit in. But eventually, we were hoping that they'd have nothing to pray for because we'd have no war, we'd have no poverty, we'd have no famine, and we'd be meeting human needs, which sort of doesn't give the priest a lot to pray for other than your own soul. Which, if you want to, you're more than welcome. You know, do whatever you believe, whatever you like. Now, is the movement only about survival? Well, considering survival is rather contingent upon happiness on this planet, I'd probably say that has to come first. But Christian,
yeah. Again, what is survival if you can't be happy while you're alive? And yeah, so is the movement only about survival? No, but it's a good place to start.
But it's more than that. It's about elevating humanity to be able to reach their potential, their true potential. You know, it's about giving you the freedom to go out and do what you really want to do in life passionately. You know, and usually that ends up with most people as doing something that wants to help other people as well. We're like that. Even in America, the most socially stratified country on earth, 50% of Americans do 4 hours worth of charitable work every year. This is a figure from The Empathic Civilization by Jeremy Rifkin, which is a very good book. But so we still give even in a system that doesn't reinforce it. Look at what we do with charities and things on this planet, which really charity is just an admission that your system doesn't work. It's trying to address a symptom of the cause rather than going for the root causes, which is what the Zeitgeist Movement and the Venus Project is really going on about. So, how did you come up with this idea? Well, I didn't. This is the lifelong work of social engineer, futurist scientist Jacques Fresco, who's now 96 and still talking about this. 70 years of his work, built on previous scientific knowledge, of course, that has gone into his design of a resource-based economy. And in the initial stages of a resource-based economy, of course, it would be updated upon new findings, as Jacques himself often says. But if you want to check out more about that organisation, go to thevenusproject.com. He was the gentleman that came up with this idea, rather poetically, by looking in the mirror one day and seeing his body and saying, if my heart decided to say, I want more of the nutrients around here, the brain said, well, I run the show, buddy, you know, things don't work without me, I get more of the nutrients. If your body behaved like that way, you rot away within a day. And that's essentially the system we have at the moment. We're going, I need more of the nutrients. No, I need more of the nutrients. No, I. And as the quote that finished my presentation that was up on the screen says, the world is one organism, and an organism at war with itself is doomed. It's not going to work out long run. You cannot have that. So we need a collaborative system. So by the time we actually need the changes, would it be too late to do?
Tough question. I don't know is the answer. I don't know. That the answer to that question relies on a survey of the planetary resources that we have, which I haven't conducted.
There's a certain element to this that is based on upcycling as well. I'm sure we can use a lot of the things we've wasted and find them again and rebuild them, but because the resources haven't gone anywhere, we've just spread them out all over the place, you know. But we've still got a lot of resources left. By the time we actually need the changes, we need the changes now. Yeah. The time is now, and hundreds of millions of people have seen our films and know about this direction. So it's not like you're alone. If you suddenly think, do you know what? These guys might be making sense, rather than thinking, well, these two are just the cuckoos who turned up to Monk's Walk last week to talk about their crazy utopian fantasies. You're not alone. There are chapters all over the world who are coming, and there are people all over the world who now, with the spread of the internet, are smelling that something's wrong about this world that we live in, and that we could do something drastically and far, far better. But in terms of whether it's too late to do or what we do, we could blow ourselves up in the future, or we could free ourselves. Emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, as Bob Marley would have put it. But that decision really starts with you, is whether you're going to change your values. If you're not going to change your values, you shouldn't expect anybody else to change theirs. It has to start with you.
I would also add that even if it were too late to enact all the changes that we need to allow human survival on the planet. That still doesn't change the need for us to try. It really doesn't. It's an admission that we failed if we don't even try. So,
and at the end of this life, all you're going to have left is your integrity of how you spent your life. That's the only thing you're going to have left is your last dying memory. You're not going to be able to take your money with you. You're going to have no more time left. It's just a case of what you were left with, what you fought for. Was it worth it? Was it worth having the Meerjet on the front lawn, or whatever it is, or was it really worth it? I don't know.
Next question.
How do you adjust the opinion of the 1%? Well, first of all, I would say that they will live a better standard of life in a resource-based economy. You live a better standard of life than kings and queens did 100 years ago, because of the technology available to you now and the medical resources and such things. So first of all, they will live better. And in our culture, if a member of the 1% is having a heart attack down on the high street and an ambulance needs to get through to him, but there's a traffic jam because of the inefficiency created by the system that he quite enjoyed residing over, thank you very much, then I'm afraid he's going to die just as much as if a tramp needed the ambulance to turn up. It's not going to make a blind jot of difference. You're not very rich then, pal. You're just going to be dead. So he too is going to have to come to the understanding that there's this symbiotic relationship between him, his fellow man, and the environment surrounding him eventually. But that all being said, lots of the 1% are starting to, well, not lots of the 1%, but lots of people up there are starting to go, you know what, you hippies might have a point. So there is a slow change of those. But to be honest, who cares? There's 1% of them. There's 99% of us. Us asking, if they just change their mind, everything will be so much better. Well, what do you think? What do you think creates the 1%? The 99. We put them there. We put them there, and we can take them down again if we want to. Not through violent actions or anything, but just peaceful non-participation in a system that doesn't meet the vast majority of human needs on this planet.
As well as that, hypothetically, if you were able to address the 1% and change all of their minds, then the 1% that inhabits the 2% of the top richest would just rise to replace them. So I personally don't really see the merit in addressing the 1% issue, because if the system that rewards that behaviour remains, you're just going to get a new type of 1%.
The analogy I like for that is you can stamp on the ants coming out from under the fridge as much as you want, but until you remove the infestation of food behind the fridge, you're not going to get rid of the problem. You're just going to end up stamping on ants the whole of your life. So that is, once again, we've got to go for root cause. Why are humans trying to limit themselves? I don't know, you look at that guy jumping from the edge of the Earth's atmosphere, he didn't seem like he was limiting himself too much. But I follow what you mean, I think. What do you think about that question?
Why are humans trying to limit themselves? I to be honest, I don't really understand the question. If you mean limit themselves in terms of population growth,
well, which we're not. I think maybe it's limit ourselves in terms of what we're actually technically capable of achieving. Why have we got all these wonderful things, but we're limiting ourselves? Well, it's not us limiting ourselves. It's the system limiting us. It's the system we all comply with by our complicit obedience to basically turn up at McDonald's and buy our Big Macs, and carry on going to buy all our stuff from corporations and what have you. That's really what's continuing to do it. But or banking, with certain people, or not going out and questioning these things, and not spreading this train of thought, maybe, not getting ourselves off the grid, doing all sorts of things to eradicate this system. That's essentially.
Yeah, I think if we see the question in a wider context, why are humans trying to limit themselves? Because of a misplaced allegiance to an economic framework or a socio-political framework that they think cannot be changed, that they think intrinsically is the very best method of social function that we've yet come up with. So
it's almost like a law of nature in itself. You know, what do they say? The only two certainties in life: death and taxes. Well, really? Because human beings have been around for like well over maybe 100,000 years or so, and for 95,000 years we were nomadic hunter-gatherers that didn't settle down. You know, and since the agricultural revolution, that's all changed, and so money only really came about shortly after that. It's only been around for, is it 5,000 years, modern money? Modern money, yeah, Mesopotamia, it's only been around for a fraction of human civilization. So to say the two certainties in life are death and taxes is incredibly limited. We limit ourselves by walking around saying crap like this, basically. You know, and we've got to stop limiting ourselves by what we see as possible. Anything's possible. We're a great species. We can achieve great things. So let's get out there and start to do it. If you're more interested, if we didn't answer all your questions well enough in this video, please do go to zeitgeistmovement.com and check it out in further detail, or thevenusproject.com. Thanks very much, guys.